Hi, this is David Greenwald from the Davis Vanguard, and in our studios today we have the Project Toto team of Jeff Miller, Matt Williams, and Bob Fung, who will be presenting their model to figure out the long-range forecast for city needs and revenue. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to explain the project briefly and then go into his presentation.
Thanks, David. First, I'd like to thank both Matt and Bob as part of a subcommittee on the Finance and Budget Commission. Matt's a fellow commissioner, and we jokingly refer to Bob as an intern, but his analysis and knowledge of the product has been helped us extensively in building this model. Basically, what we were trying to look at is the long-term forecast of the project, or the expenses traditionally shown in the staff's annual reports. The reports have been 5 to 10 years in nature, and we look to extend it out to 20 years. In January, Rob Davis, the mayor, made a statement regarding these, paying the long-term debts that things we've already purchased, as long as maintaining some of the roads and maintenance stuff that we need to do. Sorry, guys. A couple of questions we asked ourselves in getting it started is, what aren't we paying for, and how much of a hole are we actually in? A few things that we found is that, again, the annual budget process doesn't fully disclose the true nature of how big of a problem that we have, specifically around the unfunded liabilities. The other thing is that we have no proposed long-term solution to pay for these unfunded liabilities. So here's a few of the things that we found. Building this model using Analytica, which is a product from Lumina Decision Systems. Use it in building a forecasting and a planning model. We started with the official city's financial forecast, using the budget documents along with some other studies from consultants that the staff had provided us. Staff has been very helpful in bringing us this information, sometimes a little bit slow in nature, but nonetheless we've been receiving it. Again, included in the model is the extending the forecast out to 20 years, and also some of the quality of life outcomes other than just financial measures. Pavement conditions, bike path conditions, and things like that with respect to putting money into them or not putting money into them. I think this is going to help in improving the forecasting by making assumptions of what we spend money on and then showing the actual impact of those decisions. If we pull back the curtain a little bit on the model itself, you can look underneath and you'll see we have some different types of scenarios and categories, as well as the variables that are underneath the underlying assumptions, and that we've built in is the reference to each of these is where the data or information has come from.
Many of you have wondered why it's called Project Toto. Oh. You may remember in the Wizard of Oz that Toto, Dorothy's dog, pulled back the curtain and exposed the wizard was only a human being behind there. And we're trying to do the same thing with the fiscal situation. The limitations on the budget, which are imposed by state law, we want to see what's behind the curtain, the things that can't get on the budget because we don't have enough revenues.
Thanks. And again, behind each of these is a link of some sort to where specifically the data information came from, whether it be the city website or consulting report. Again, using Excel for something this complex, it's pretty difficult to put all the variables in and to be able to get a clear, easy way to use the model. So Bob has built this in the Analytica with a simple dashboard on the front end of it. Just to start, we'll go into the model a little bit and show how it actually works, but trying to get through it without having the model me not get through correctly doing the demonstration. We're just going to show via the PowerPoint presentations. The initial assumptions that the city has made is what we put on this first page here, with 0% from the cost of living increases, keeping the current pavement plan as well as the current bicycle path plan, and the assumed rates of 7.25% and 7.5% for the OPEB and pension returns. We'll talk a little bit more about the revenues and the forecast side of this in a little bit. So if we, essentially what the city has in their documents and what this shows right here is that we haven't any problems. There's a positive reserve balance through the next 20 years. For the little tail or blip in that graph, that shows where the sales tax ends in 2020 as it's proposed to do. Okay, so we decided what happens if we look at some reasonable scenarios. First one we looked at was a 1% decrease in the discount rate for the pension and medical retiree plans. That would move us into approximately $70 million deficit over that 20-year period of time. If we went back and we looked at next the cost of living index, or excuse me,
Cost of living
Adjustments,
excuse me. And we decided the last one that they received was a 3%. So we went and decided we'll just use a 1.5%. It's a reasonable assumption. Again, that's a $70 million deficit in the next 20 years. If you add them together, we end up with over a $150 million deficit in the next 20 years. And then if we look at the roads and the bike paths,
our starting point on this is the reports that the staff has provided to council using Nichols Engineering as their expert advisors. And what they found is that Davis's current roads are below the statewide average, and if you look at the towns that are near us, substantially below those. A lot of people have said we think of Davis as an above average city, but if you look at the conditions of our roads, it's not consistent with that sense we have of ourselves.
So if we continue the existing funding that the city has now planned for the roads, again, we stay in above the zero line. If we do that, however, using that pavement condition index, we go from 63 down into the 30s. The problem with that is as you move down that PCI index and get down into the 30s, it starts getting incrementally more expensive to fix those to where you eventually have to completely reconstruct the roads. So it moves to 2, 3, 4 times as much if we let them deteriorate with not putting any money into them now. So there's a graph showing the current budget. Again, shows positive cash flow at the end of or positive deficit at the end of the 20 years. But if we maintain the current conditions, again, we're down to close to $100 million in deficits. So if we add all of that up together, just using those reasonable assumptions, we end up with we're about $300 million in the hole. So next we thought we'd look at is the revenue side of this, how we can address these issues and how to offset that. First, we took into consideration if we extended the sales tax additional 8 years, that would bring us to a $250 million in the whole situation. If we permanently extended it, that would reduce that liability to $150 million. We've got 3 hotels, one of them just approved the other day. If all 3 of those are approved and up online, that would reduce the deficit in 20 years to around $100 million. And finally, we looked at the parcel taxes. How would we bring this back to zero if we move the current $49 parcel tax up to $200 a parcel? That would about bring the line back to zero in 20 years.
And that's a permanent parcel tax, and it's actually 200 over the existing 49, so we're talking about $250 per parcel forever.
But again, we have not yet got the parks and building structures incorporated into the model just yet. Of the 315 million, we just estimated about half of that, added 150 million in. So even with the sales tax, hotels, and $200 parcel tax, we're still $150 million in the hole.
And you ask why we did 50%. The staff has gone back realizing that their $315 million number was very high and unaffordable, so they're back sharpening their pencils and figuring out how to try and do more with less.
So we've just gone through some different scenarios that you can see using the model, and users of the model can choose any number of thousands of scenarios to see, given various assumptions, what happens.
So why is what happens important? Well, all of us as Davis citizens make decisions at the voting booth, in our participation on commissions, task forces, in public comment at city council meetings, and ideally we're making good decisions by being clearly informed about the trade-offs and impacts of those decisions. We all have had to do this a bit in the dark in the past. The whole idea behind Project Toto is to provide a tool available on the internet. Right now it's available to us, the Project Toto team. Our goal is to have it available to all citizens on the internet, but that provides you with access to this information to make good decisions. Is it ready? Well, all the numbers are in. As we said, the parks looked at the fact that their number of 315 million was a big lift, and they're trying to do better. We're waiting for updates from them on that. One of the nice things about scenarios is we will keep the original numbers as a scenario and put in the updated numbers as a second scenario. So as staff and professional consultants help us be more efficient and effective in running the city, we'll be able to see comparisons of before and after, or alternative scenarios that in many cases you as the citizens come up with. We've briefed the city manager and city staff on the model, and we're looking at various ways to make the model more useful.
So, the call to action is that we've developed a petition. We'll show you here in a minute. We should have that online as well. We're looking for signatures on that, specifically asking the city manager to adopt a 20-year budget forecast model that includes all of the unfunded liabilities and expenses, as well as some sort of plan as to how to take care of those. The other part of what the Finance and Budget Commission is trying to do is build a survivable process or model. I've been around on the commission for more than 7 years, seen several city councilmen, the city managers, staff, commissioners. What we're looking to try to do is build something that survives all of that. That every 2 years when we have a new city council or we have a new city manager, there's new goals or they're setting, that at least there's some process or model that we can monitor what the city staff has proposed to the city council, and the city council's adopted, but the Finance and Budget Commission can monitor to see that those things have actually occurred. Next, there's the petition. Again, we'll have that online as well as in the presentations. And next we're going to do is to go into the actual live demonstration.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for doing this, and